We are all built by our life stories, but sometimes the stories we tell ourselves aren't true, kind, or accurate. With the right mindset, we can transform them into stories that inspire and uplift, especially in tough times. At Storybilt, we uncover the strength and beauty that can arise from adversity. Join us as we explore the lives of guests from all walks of life. Discover why the world is Storybilt.
Right on, right on. Okay, this is my podcast. Mitch, I haven't named it yet. That's another thing. We were just chatting a little bit, just getting the hang of it. But I don't know if that's a dyslexic thing. But I have such a hard time making decisions on certain things. But excited to have Mitch Watkins on the channel today on the podcast. I got to know you through a buddy, Nate Stoltenau, who introduced me to you. And man, you do quite a bit. You're leading teams. You're in the sales world from what I've seen, right?
That's right.
And so excited to have you on the call, kind of discuss some of this stuff, your experience with dyslexia. I know you had mentioned to me once that your daughter has it, and she's kind of been through the ringer as well. And but it's pretty rad having a dad that knows what she's going through. So excited to have you on, Mitch. Thanks for jumping on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tyler. It's something that I've developed a passion for being more vulnerable about over the last couple of years, particularly as like I mentioned, my oldest daughter has dyslexia, and we're pretty sure my youngest daughter and my son does as well. One of them for sure does not. And so
Okay.
like three of the four kids have varying degrees of dyslexia. I actually have ADHD with my dyslexia, and my oldest daughter does as well. The younger two don't seem to display the ADHD tendencies as much,
Yeah.
but the older one is like just a carbon copy of me, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
Just all over the place.
Yeah. Um,
Oh man.
and luckily, like I didn't get an official diagnosis until I was in college.
Mm.
Um, and so, there's a lot more resources now.
Yeah.
It's still not great, but there's like back in the 90s, right? Like when I was in elementary school, it was like, oh, you're in the slow readers group, right?
Yeah. For sure, man. 100%. I felt so smart in those groups.
Yeah, exactly. It was
So
great for the
embarrassed.
self-esteem.
Yeah. That is
Um,
crazy.
and like with Grammarly and so many other tools, like it's so much easier to be a dyslexic person these days.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah,
that
when
chat
we're
GPT, have you seen that
yeah,
stuff?
dude, yes, I use it all the time. I'll
It's like
drop an
changing
email.
everything for me, dude.
I'll drop an email and I'm like, hey, write a response to this.
Exactly.
Make it sound a little more casual. Okay, perfect.
All the time. I'm always like, make this email make me, seem like a better salesperson. And it does, man. It's awesome. Well, hey man, I love it. I want to I typically like to start these out. I want to hear the experience. I want to give you the opportunity to kind of give a quick bio on who you are, what you're currently doing, your profession. And then I want to kind of take a trip back to memory lane and love to understand, your life growing up, family, atmosphere, school, how growing up was, right? Because with this podcast, it's really to raise awareness around dyslexia and to provide kind of mental health strategies to people that maybe are young kids that feel stupid, and are in that slow class, or adults like us that are just figuring it out, and still
Yeah.
don't know what's wrong with them. You know what I mean? So if you can hit us off with that, Mitch, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, Mitch Watkins, first and foremost, husband, father, right? Like if you ask me what I do, that's my number one job.
Love that.
My 9 to 5 though is I'm the chief experience officer at Greenix Pest Control.
Okay.
So I have, but my background is in inside sales, and so
Mhm.
the inside sales program I kicked off here back in 2019, and the team's just crushing it, dude. They're doing so great.
Nice. And
But I,
you were leading that team. You kind of kicked off the inside sales team. Is
yeah,
that what
so
you're saying?
they brought me over to wrap my arms around their call center operations, their contact
Mm.
center operations in 2018, full well knowing they wanted to get an inside sales program off the ground. And so in 2019, we officially kicked off inside sales. And then in
Gotcha. Okay.
2020, we brought in uh, a CMO to help us get going. But that first year, I was over all the demand marketing and
Okay.
inside sales team going.
Nice.
We have I'm really proud of that group, honestly. Like inside sales is notorious for not turning a profit until you hit like a critical mass, and we were
Mm.
actually running in the black the first year,
Wow.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
We got really scrappy. We probably could have done like higher revenue that year,
Mm.
but more than like the goal was proof of concept more than like maximizing revenue growth. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a little bit of a measure twice, cut once model, proved concept. Hey, this is going to work. This works for our customer base, our industry, which isn't surprising. Like, there's plenty of inside
Yeah.
teams that sell pest control, right?
Well, that's
And
cool though, because you could have probably taken it, the former, as you were mentioning, maybe just going for max revenue right off the bat, right? But you were thinking maybe long term and how to really capitalize on that year 2, year 3.
yeah,
This set a solid foundation.
we wanted to be profitable like right out of the chute. We wanted to be cash
Hmm.
flow positive for that team. Um, and it's been a big piece. Like our inside sales team was our biggest acquisition channel last year.
Hmm.
And Greenix is a top 15 pest control company of 20,000 pest control companies in the US, right? Like
Top 15.
not a small operation, right? And
Yeah,
that team crushed it. We'll have
that's
50
huge.
sales agents this year. They'll average like 70 to 80K with zero experience. My top producers will do like 140, 150.
Wow.
Last year we took our top performers, top half, like President's Club trip to Hawaii.
Mm.
We're gonna do like a cruise to the Bahamas this year. It'll be great. Like it's a fun
Yeah,
team. I've
yeah.
got a director over that team and two managers. They're really running the day to day. And
Okay.
there's three of some of the best leaders I've ever worked with. Super raw,
Huh.
like young, hungry, and I can provide a little more guidance for them.
Yeah.
But they get to live in the weeds with that group and really make it grow, and they're killing it. In fact, my director's out on paternity leave right now. Just had his second, and I'm like he's 27 or 28, and I'm just so stoked for him, dude. Like it's
Yeah.
fun to like help him develop professionally, but also just you know see him grow as
See
a,
him
as a
grow.
husband and a father and like step up into that role.
Yeah.
Like when I started, he was a newlywed. Now he has two kids and
Yeah.
owns a house.
That's awesome.
It's super
Yeah. Yeah.
rewarding.
Yeah. See him
Um,
succeed. Be his mentor on that front. Oh, that's rad.
yeah, so
I
that's
love that.
my 9 to 5. My most important job, like I said, is probably being a dad and a husband, father of 4 kids. My oldest is
Mm.
16. I have a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, and those first three are girls: Kenzie, Emma,
Okay.
Addie. And then our caboose is Levi. He's our boy. He's
Oh,
9.
nice.
Yep. And Emma, Addie, and Levi are dyslexic. Emma's
Okay.
probably, and Emma has the comorbidity of ADHD as well. Um,
Yeah.
but all three of them are, and like we've actually been homeschooling for 9 years, and the reason is
Oh, okay.
because Emma's dyslexic, and my wife, God bless her,
Mm.
was spending 2 hours a night with her on homework when she was in third grade, and they stopped teaching um, reading as a skill in fourth grade, right? It's
Yep.
just expected, and so my wife Amber is like, um, I might as well just take over the whole thing, right?
Mm.
And
Wow.
that's
That's tough.
and her biggest motivation was she had started to see Emma develop a belief that she wasn't smart because she
Mm.
didn't fit into the traditional school box, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Amber's like, she's a smart girl, and I just can't sit here and watch her develop a belief that she isn't, right?
Mm.
And this is
Huge.
all coming from my awesome wife. Like, I don't know how I got
Yeah.
so lucky, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but and it's like it having a non-dyslexic child, a neurotypical child, has actually really helped Amber
Mm.
like parent and teach our dyslexic kids because
Really?
which is a little counterintuitive because at first she's like, man, am I just bad at teaching? It's like, no, her brain works different because you're doing the
Yeah.
same thing with Kenzie, and she's picking it up really quick. And
Yeah.
so it's allowed her to understand, okay, this works for Kenzie, let's try other things to see what works for Emma, right?
Gotcha. Yep. Yep.
um and
100%.
now my wife's like, dude, she's like the homeschool missionary, right? Like, the founder of Greenix, Matt Flanders, he's dyslexic, and
Okay.
he and I are just like, dude, twin flames, right? Like, we're just kindred spirits,
Yeah.
and all three of his kids are dyslexic. And I remember his wife at a Jazz game, and my wife just like didn't watch the game at all, just spent the whole time talking about homeschooling and working with dyslexic children, because
Yeah.
they weren't homeschooling yet. And so
Okay.
Gina like was getting all the lowdown of like, hey, this is what's worked with my dyslexic kids, this what hasn't worked. And they've been homeschooling for 5 years now.
Wow. Okay.
Been a game changer. Matt turned me on to the book The Dyslexic Advantage,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you read it or familiar
Yep.
with it. And by read, I mean listen to it on Audible.
I was just gonna say that one. I tried. I bought the book, and I'm like, oh, not enough pictures.
Exactly.
Give me that audio book.
I say
100%.
read, dude. I
Yeah.
haven't like read a book in forever. It's always podcast Audible, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Exactly.
and the cool thing is the data suggests like for retention and understanding, like there's no
Hmm.
difference to your brain.
No. Yeah.
You're reading or being read to, so to speak, right?
I don't know. And this for me, it's kind of crazy when I have crazy hard workouts and I'm listening to a podcast or a book, like an audio book. The most I got out of the Dyslexic Advantage was when my heart rate was like 180, 190. I'm dying on a mountain bike. And and maybe that's the ADD part of me too, is being able to I'm just focusing on trying to live, but then also, also this book that's in my ear. But man, it's so true. So this is the first book that I bought in probably, I actually don't know. I don't know if I've ever bought a book besides college days, but it's called This is Dyslexia from Kate Griggs.
Ooh, I
And
haven't read it yet.
it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. And there's a lot of, it's catered to, yeah, it's amazing, but it's hard. It's hard for me to,
on LinkedIn.
yeah.
So
And you should, she's
familiar with
absolutely
her.
crazy.
Yeah.
She's doing amazing things. She's out of the UK. It seems like it's a lot more adopted out there. Like it's a lot more spoken, talked about. But yeah, it's very hard though, this book. As far as it's not hard, but it's weird for me to sit down and open up a book.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice because I'm writing notes, even though I can't read it. My notes, but there's some good stuff in there, but it's taking me a while.
Dude, that's so funny that you say that because it's like, yes, dude, I can't read my notes, but there is something about writing that helps me remember it.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I wrote,
You got to get it out.
What the hell I wrote?
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Oh, that's crazy. So your wife and Matt's wife are homeschooling. Man, I'm happy. You've got 4 kids. I've got 4 kids as well. 10-year-old boy. I'm 1 boy and 3 girls. But my boy's 10, and then my daughters are 8, 6, and 5.
Okay.
And so my boy's not dyslexic. He's like he's like my little brother growing up. Like
Mm-hmm.
didn't really work hard, but was just super smart, did really good in school,
Yeah.
didn't have to put a ton of effort in it. And then I've got at least 2 daughters, I think that just are struggling. And so I'm happy to connect with you to learn from you
That's
and your
so
wife as they get older.
so
Maybe we do
interesting.
need to go that homeschool route.
Yeah. Oh, dude, my wife will talk you into it.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's funny you mentioned. I have a little brother too, who's a few years younger than me, maybe 4. And
Uh,
early on, I realized that Elliot is just way better at spelling than me.
yeah.
And so I would just do my homework randomly, like, hey, how do you spell this?
Yep.
And it just like wasn't even an ego thing. It's like I just don't know, and you do, so
Yeah.
just tell me.
Just tell me. Oh, that's awesome.
But it's
So
like it's cool
no,
seeing
yeah, go ahead.
like our Elliot was my spell check, and nowadays like Emma will just have like you know my wife's phone with her, and
Mm.
she'll be like, "Hey Siri, how do you spell this?"
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that
It's
helps her a
crazy.
ton. There's so many
It
more resources today.
so much
Technology is
more.
really, because you look at dyslexic folks, and there are some legitimate strengths they
Yeah.
have in how their brain works.
Yep.
And there's some legitimate weaknesses, and technology has really started to minimize the impact of those weaknesses.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. I think like we were saying before, the Chat GPT thing scares the crap out of me. Just that like I just feel like, it's gonna take over the world and it's gonna
Yeah,
be like iRobot with Will Smith, and that's where we're headed. But then in the meantime, it's like, man, this is sweet. Like I spend, because I'm in sales as well,
hmm,
and I'll spend an hour or 2 hours on an email, crafting an email to a chief marketing officer, head of ecom for a big company, and I don't want to get it wrong. And man, I mean, but I have learned over the years, like you just got to be you. You got to be authentic. Like you can't hide. Actually, I was reading this last night, and I wanted to. It was kind of eye opening. It was, so this is from this book, and let's see if I can read it. This can this can make us feel as if we're not as smart as others. Just the whole dyslexia thing, which can make others think that too. For example, 89% of dyslexics. Sorry, this is pretty funny. You try to get like dyslexic people trying to read.
out loud.
Like,
Yeah,
this is 89% of dyslexics struggle with spelling and grammar. When a spelling or grammar mistake is made, others are all too quick to pick us up on it and call us out for our carelessness, for not checking our work. So it's hardly surprising that 3 out of 4 dyslexics hide their dyslexia from their employers as they get older.
yeah,
And man, I mean, I remember for me, like, I mean, I've got 13 years, I guess, in the big boy world, and doing sales, and it's been a very, I mean, I feel like I've been let go from a job once because of dyslexia. Once I told my boss everything had changed. Awesome guy, but he just looked at me so different. He looked at me kind of frankly how teachers looked at me growing up,
yeah,
and just like, oh, he doesn't get it. He would talk slower to me. It's like, dude, like I speak English,
yeah,
Again, awesome dude,
yeah.
great guy. But it really triggered something in me, kind of like back to childhood days, like a PTSD of, man, I
Like,
can't tell anyone. And I've wanted to do this podcast, and I do public speaking stuff for a while, but it's really been kind of, that moment was a trigger for me again. And it's like, I can't tell people, I can't tell
yeah,
employers, I can't let people know. And hardest thing I think I've done was post my first time on LinkedIn about 11 months ago, and just a brief synopsis of my story. And it was me. I found out I was dyslexic when I was 18, and yeah, the lady said that I had the reading level of a third grader. And as far as the retention and comprehension, like I could read, people could hear me, maybe I was sloppy or whatever, but I did not understand any of it. The words were all
yeah,
over the page. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
totally.
so just an interesting setup, right? Like, and it's it's so awesome that you and your wife are able to help out Emma and your other kids that probably are dyslexic because, excuse me, it's, I mean, without mentors, man, it's you can go one way or another with anything in life, right? But especially dyslexia, which
Totally.
it's not mentioned a lot, right? And 1 out of 5, 1 out of 8 people have dyslexia. So there's a lot of these kids that are just trying to hide it, and adults, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, dude, it's what,
absolutely
like,
crazy.
when you reached out to me, I was so stoked that there's somebody out there like, hey, let's talk about this more, because it just isn't talked about, right? It's not a cool mental, well, I don't know, not illness, but like, you know, it
Yeah,
doesn't get as much attention as ADHD or
yeah,
autistic spectrum disorder, right?
uh-huh, yeah,
Um, and I think it's largely due to the fact, to the point you made, is like we're pretty damn good at hiding it, right?
yeah, yeah,
And society's conditioned us to want to hide it, right?
yeah,
Because we don't fit into the box, like the
hmm,
educational box that like neurotypical people do, right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, so and like quite frankly, um, so when I started, like I haven't been posting recently, but I had a good run posting on LinkedIn, and I put dyslexia in my bio
Yeah, I saw that.
just just so people would be a little more, like, I knew I was going to make grammatical and spelling errors no matter how much Grammarly and spell check and everything else I used. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I put it in there just to, so people would go a little easier on me.
That's awesome.
That was
That's
the
awesome, dude.
reason,
I
dude.
need to do that. I need to do that.
And you know, I've written a post where I tried to write the word invest, and I wrote incest instead. Very much changed the the meaning of the sentence.
The whole meeting.
Yeah,
And then Mitch was taken off LinkedIn for a week.
that's right. I got blacklisted. No,
Yeah.
no, but I had like 3 people DM me and be like, "Hey, I think you meant to write invest." I'm like, "Oh shit, yes, yes,
You're
I
like,
did."
no, dude.
Thank you.
That's awesome. That's funny. Yeah, see, because I was just gonna say and I honestly sometimes, because it's weird. I'm on this like this high now, right? Like this kick of I just got to be me. Like
Yeah,
this is me, Tyler Spendlove, 5'5.5". Like check me out. I can't spell. Um, I make up words all the time. I can't
that's right.
say what I'm thinking in the right way, and it's it's what you get. But so I've thought about like maybe turning off Grammarly, but then for experiences like that, Mitch, like I can't risk it. I can't send an
No,
email saying some wrong things,
that's right.
but
You don't want to email a CMO incest.
yeah, exactly,
It's frowned
exactly.
upon in the professional space.
Yeah, a little bit.
Periods.
Um, hey, man. Well, so talk to me real quick. What was your childhood like? I mean, because you're obviously an outgoing dude, and you seem super confident. And this is one thing that I want like listeners to understand. Whether you have dyslexia, you don't have it, your kids have it, maybe some of your employees have it, maybe your boss has it, right? It's like, I mean, just your first quick summary, your quick
Yeah,
bio that you gave, just as far as your professional career, man. Like, you're absolutely killing it, right? And
yeah,
and there's people that I've said this a lot, but you can find a lot of this data, and Kate Griggs talks about it too, but it's like 60 to 69% of all people in prison are dyslexic, but then 42% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic, right? So
yeah.
like, I'm not saying that that's the ultimate, like you need to be a multimillionaire to be successful, right? But like there's some pretty crazy spectrums here that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
And with the
I
right
think,
guidance.
well, I think it's right, dude. Like, I think guidance is a big part, and I think it's like how you choose to react to the circumstance that makes a big,
Mhm.
like Richard Branson, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
ADHD dyslexic dude crushing it in life, right? The dude
Crushing it.
owns an island in the Bahamas and
Yeah.
plays tennis every day, like.
Exactly.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
also, like, I hadn't heard that stat about the folks in prison, but that doesn't surprise me, dude. So
Yeah, no, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of the, like, I found one study, A lot of it's based out of the UK, but there's
Mhm.
a lot of that information you can find. And real quick, because I want to hear your story, but you talk about Richard Branson. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there's the Sammy Gravato. I'm trying to remember. You know, the famous gangsters in New York or whatever.
Yeah.
I always forget the main guy's name, the head honcho, but Sammy the Bull was his right hand guy,
Yeah.
and he was put in prison for killing 19 people, and he just got out. He just got out. Like, he's been 40 years or something like that in prison. Just got out like 2 years ago, and he had his first interview ever. And I'm trying to remember the guy. The guy's got a massive following, an awesome podcast. I love the way he asks his questions. He had Kobe Bryant on, Michael Jordan, like all the greats, but he had Sammy the Bull Gravano on,
Mhm.
and he was asking, he's like, what was your childhood like? Like, what turned you into this killer? Like, were you raised, were you abused? He's like, no, man, like my parents were great. They loved me. They're hardworking Italians.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what was it? And he's like, dude, I was in like elementary school, whatever they called it back in the day. And people made fun of me because I'm dyslexic. He couldn't even say dyslexic. He was like, I'm dyslexic.
I'm
And people started making fun of me, and they would bully me. And so I would just fight them. And
Yeah.
so the guy was like, if you had someone to mentor you as a kid, like, do you think that would have changed? You think you'd be killing people? And he's like, absolutely. I feel like if someone would have helped me with my dyslexia, then I would have been fine. It was, and he straight up, because of dyslexia, is what he was saying.
I totally believe that. It's like that's the exact reason why my wife pulled my kids out of school to homeschool them. Was like, she was like very concerned about Emma developing a sense of self, thinking she was stupid, you know? But yeah, man,
Awesome.
that's funny that he couldn't say dyslexia. I often joke with such a straight face, people don't really realize I'm joking. I'll say dyslexia.
Dyslexia. Yes.
I was like, oh, my dyslexia is coming out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They're like, oh.
Like, that's not the word.
Come on, buddy. They're there.
But
so what was it like for you then growing up, Mitch? Like, what was your experience with dyslexia?
Dude, my dyslexia had a very big impact on me in my young life. So like I mentioned, like very, very much put into the slow readers group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they called it the slow readers group.
Like, if the target isn't big enough, right? Like,
dude, they called it the slow readers group and the fast readers group, and I think that was my first memory of being like, oh, I'm bad at this, or I'm different, or there's something, or I'm stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I also remember in like third grade, missing recess every Friday because I got less than 50% of my spelling, and I had to redo the test. And I think I'd go from like 30% to 60% or something. I'd still get half of them wrong, basically.
Dude,
but like
I totally forgot about that. I was held back from recess all the time, dude. I totally forgot about that.
But it's like all your friends get to go outside and run around and play tag, and you're the kid inside because the teacher says you're not smart enough to go play outside, right?
Yeah.
And they truly treated you and believed that you were either dumb or lazy.
Yeah.
Right? I remember very distinctly like getting that impression from these adults that like were in a position of power in my life. By the time I got to high school, dude, I had really like quit trying. Like I think, so for sure got the ADHD thing going on. So sitting still felt like I was crawling out of my skin. If like, even still, dude, like I'd get up and move once an hour.
Yeah.
At work. And luckily I have a job where I can like get up and walk around and check in on people. And, but I'm not somebody that like will close the door to my office and you won't see me for 8 hours. Cause I just can't, like I physically can't sit there and do that. Right.
Right.
But like by the time I got to high school, And like my home life was very turbulent. By the time I was 18, I'd been physically, emotionally, and sexually abused. I had been in foster care, and I'd been homeless. And so I didn't like had great stability, like all by the time of my senior year in high school, right? So I didn't have great stability at home. And so like on top of that, and feeling like I never thought I wasn't smart. That's the weird part. And
Yeah.
like what divine intervention that I had a sense of self enough to know that I wasn't stupid,
Yeah.
but like I was just bad at the game of school.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood
Love
that
how you
for what
said
it
that.
was, but I truly quit trying,
Yeah.
you know? Like it was C's and D's pretty much in every class, even the ones I was like I was decently good at like anatomy and biology because it's very visual, right?
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
have a damn good memory. Like
Mm.
I'm just bad at reading, you
Yeah.
know? And so like my like AP biology, I would sit there and not take notes and just listen to the lecture. And like luckily the AP biology teacher was like a really good like oral teacher and had good visuals. And I never studied once and like passed the AP test, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
because I just was able to listen and learn that way.
Yep.
But like I ended up not graduating from high school. A good part of my senior year, I was homeless or in foster care, so that was a contributing factor. But I failed my senior year English and was not allowed to graduate with my class. Went enrolled in UVSC because they'll take anybody, and took college English, and that's when I found out I was dyslexic. That my college freshman English teacher at UVSC was like, "Did you know you're dyslexic?" And I was like, "I had no idea." And
Huh.
she really worked with me. She loved me for
Yeah.
whatever reason. And
Huh.
it's coincidentally, that was the class I had with my wife. We didn't meet in English. We met in the library, but we had that English class together.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
she would help me with English. I would help her with her anatomy. That's not code for anything. She literally
All
had
right. I was just gonna say, come on, Mitch. Slow down, man.
anatomy. But I think I got like a C, maybe a C plus in that college English class, and
Money.
I took that back to Provo School District and got a GED.
Wow.
And like to your point of feeling like you need to hide stuff forever, I have felt like so embarrassed about the
Yeah.
fact that I didn't graduate from high school, that
Yeah.
I like had to go back and get a GED, you know? I
Yeah.
remember like going to my friend like my high school graduation. I wasn't graduating, I wasn't walking, but I remember going to the McKay Event Center at UVSC, sitting in the top right corner by myself, watching my friends graduate. And I was planning on staying there the whole time, but like as soon as they started like calling names and handing out diplomas, dude, I broke down and had to leave, you know?
Wow.
Um, and so, then I got into, uh, got married, started family, and I was like, man, I'm not good at school. Like, I don't really want to spend a ton of money on tuition until I know what I'm going to do. So I started plumbing, and I was going to plumbing school. I was like, shoot, I'll just do this, start my own business. Like, if you're a
Yeah.
plumber and you own a plumbing company, like, you can do well in life, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with
Yeah.
that. I
No,
wasn't
absolutely.
afraid of hard work, which was a great plan until like the 2008 financial crisis.
Mm.
And then there
Wow.
wasn't
Yeah.
construction anymore.
Yeah.
So I took like
Jeez.
the logical next step and just sold alarm systems door to door in Chicago.
Makes sense, man. Here in Utah.
Yeah, dude. And honestly, I was kind of terrible at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I went and worked in the call center at Vivint afterwards, and moved over to inside sales, and like that's what started my career in inside sales, and that's never ended up going back to school and finishing a degree.
Wow.
But it's crazy, dude, because like what you
That's
talked about,
awesome.
just like feeling embarrassed, and wanting to
Yeah.
hide. Um, we had a private equity group several years ago at Greenix come in, and we needed to put like an executive intro deck together, and it was like, okay,
Yeah.
put your bio together, your education, and I was like, oh, what the hell do I put,
The streets.
and I put GED.
You
And
did?
I did, and I sent it to my boss, and he took it out.
Way.
I don't blame him,
No
but
way.
it was a moment of like triumph and ownership for me,
I
like
love that.
feeling comfortable enough with who I am and my story that I could send
I'm right
the
now.
president,
That's
who's a
awesome.
very well educated individual, right? Our
Yeah.
CEO's Harvard MBA, my boss, JD MBA, like super
Yeah.
smart guy. And both people that value education, knowing
Right.
like
Knowing.
he's not going to put this on the private equity slide deck, right?
Right.
Like, but
Yeah.
me owning it enough to send it to my boss, like,
Yep. That was
that
probably just like a
it was a
breath of fresh air.
it was a moment of personal triumph for me,
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know
Yeah.
if that like answered the question you're going for of like the Mitch backstory a little bit.
Dude, that was money. I mean, crazy. I mean, obviously this is the first that you and I have ever met, right? We spoke for like 3 minutes before the episode, before the countdown. But
Yeah,
yeah, man, I mean, listen, that's wild, right? Like I have no clue about your background. Thank you for sharing that. Like that takes a lot of vulnerability and guts as well, right? But I guess a question that comes to my mind is, when you're going through those crazy struggles as a kid, man, like as far as the abuse and then the homelessness, and on top of that, you're in the slow readers group, as a young buck, and there's all this stuff that's going down, right? Like, I guess two things. One, I want to know, did you have anyone that like had your back? Did you have any kind of mentor guide? It sounds like your English teacher in college at UVSC was able to kind of help you and kind of guide you along that path. Kind of, hey, Mitch, you're dyslexic, brother, but that's not a bad thing. But as a kid, did you have anyone that helped you with that? And then two is what I've seen, and even in my own personal experience, and what I've heard a lot of from different stories is with dyslexia, and it doesn't even have to be dyslexia. It could be anything in life, right? But people will the whole fight and flight scenario, right?
yeah,
But I've noticed it's either, because you mentioned this before, like dyslexics are pretty good at hiding stuff, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
for me, I always resorted to I would make fun of myself. I was the class clown. It was in the
yes,
yearbook, Tyler Spendlove, class clown,
yep,
Even as a kid, I would make fun of myself, but I would go home and I would cry or I'd get angry,
yep,
punch holes in my wall as a kid. And my
yeah,
parents like, dude, what's your deal? Right. But I resorted to humor and just sports, right? Like that was my outlet, but it was just, I took it. I made fun of myself. I ended up letting that bully inside just take control. And I believed everyone. I believed myself. But then I've seen others that just completely shut down and they
totally,
can't function. I've seen
yeah,
people that have resorted to violence,
yeah.
right? And then there's people that just are good at hiding it. But what was your scenario with both of those questions? Mentor, and then what did you resort to?
Dude, so much, man. Like it's so interesting how much like you said, we've emailed and like messaged on LinkedIn, you know,
Yeah.
we've talked for like 3 minutes before the countdown, but how much we have in common, dude, it's crazy. So uh the mentor question, I mean, well, two thoughts. When you told me about the prison or millionaire thing, it's
Yeah.
hilarious because I've always said that. I'm like, my two paths in life were like dead, homeless, or in prison,
Yeah.
or like wildly successful. You know what I mean? And
I
I
think we got the latter.
evidently, like statistically,
Yeah.
that supports that.
Right.
um,
Nice.
yeah, dude. Like, I think that's why I'm not in prison. Is
Mm,
like I was tremendously blessed with a ton of good people that rallied around me.
mm,
Not from a school perspective or mentoring me that way,
yeah.
but despite the lack of love and support and safety at home, most of my senior year, like I was living on people's couches and like people that I didn't know,
Mm,
like
yeah.
I slept in my buddy's garage for a while underneath his pool table. And then his young men's president took me in for a little bit.
Mm,
And like I slept on another buddy's couch for a few months, and their parents like fed me and did my laundry and like
wow.
completely took me in and cared for me. Like who
Really?
does that? Like I'm
Yeah.
stinky teenage boy, dude. Like, like
That's
and
crazy. So it's
like
just a community then.
just a community. And there's
Yeah.
like a handful of girls that, I was friends with at high school whose parents would have me over for like family home evening or like
Mm,
family game night or Sunday dinner. Like, I never stayed with them, but like
yeah. Yeah.
they wanted me to feel like I was part of their family in some ways,
Man, that's
Um,
awesome. I
and
love
like
that.
early on, when I was like 12-ish, I had like right after, or like pretty close to after my parents got divorced, my mom enrolled me and my siblings in like the Big Brother Big Sister program, and like
Mm,
there was this guy, the guy that was assigned to us. His name was Talmadge Iyer. He was playing basketball at BYU.
okay.
And his parents are Linda and Richard Iyer. They write books about parenting and whatnot. And
Mm,
Cal like saw a big need, but also knew that he was like full-time student trying to get married. He was a collegiate athlete,
yeah.
so he didn't have as much time as he could tell we needed.
Yeah.
Um, so he introduced us to his older brother Josh,
Mm,
and Josh was not part of the Big Brother Sister program. This wasn't counting towards any credits for him, but man, outside of like my mom's mom, like Josh was probably the only other person to that point in my life that I felt like truly loved by. And
really?
like a total stranger, dude. Like, so
Wow.
Josh would come hang out with us like 3 times a week. He would take us up to his parents' house in Salt Lake.
Mm,
And like he had a sister that was my age. Um, and like we'd hang out with his family on Sunday. We'd go up to their family cabin in Bear Lake. I met his
wow.
grandma. I remember sitting next to his mom Linda in the Marriott Center, like watching Talmadge play basketball. And like I think I was like connected to the Ayers for like 1 year, about
Yeah.
maybe 18 months, where Josh was like hanging out with us. And dude, looking back, the Iyer family probably had a bigger impact on my trajectory, because soon after that is like when stuff started really going south for me with the
Really?
abuse and the back and forth between my parents and the some mental health challenges. I had 3 suicide attempts in high school.
Dang.
And like I remember going to Josh's parents' house, and that was the first time I was like, it feels so different here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like like love and safety and peace. And
Hmm.
like I remember like seeing the family environment that Josh and Tal grew up with, and
Yeah.
like I was like, this is what I want.
That's what I want. Wow.
And like how important,
Wow.
like I just knew that I had to marry the right person,
Yeah.
to have that, somebody who'd be a great mom, who'd be a great wife, who wanted to build that with me.
Hmm.
um, and just had such a big impact. And they were part of my life for such a short period of time, but had, looking back, like just such a profound impact on like my trajectory, dude.
Wow.
Those people that like took me into their home, and the Ayers, they are the reason I'm not in prison. They
Hmm.
are the reason I married who I married and have 4 amazing kids who just blow me away every day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like very, very,
Nice.
very eternally grateful and lucky for these people who were placed in my life in times
Yeah.
that I needed them, right?
That is
So yeah,
awesome.
I had mentorship, not on the school front, but
Mm-hmm.
like the support I needed. Um, and then
That's huge.
so
That's
mentorship was
huge.
the other question, dude. I'm sorry.
No, so no, you're good, man. That's massive, man. I think well, I've got another kind of follow up, but
Yeah, hit me.
yeah, that's beautiful. That's a really cool experience. I think the other question was more of kind of like, what did you resort to, right? Like you've been through the ringer, it sounds like. But like even from elementary school in the slow readers group, like were you out just socking kids in the face?
Oh yeah.
Were you just getting all your frustration out through jokes about yourself or through sports, or you know what I mean? And then I got a follow-up question after that kind of ties to all of this.
Yeah, so that's a great question, dude. Yeah, I resorted to humor and self-deprecation a lot like you did.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately,
Man.
not athletic.
Yeah.
So, I do remember distinctly, like in high school, being like, "Man, I suck at everything. Like, I'm just like bad at school. I'm bad at sports. Like, I wonder when I'm gonna find out what I'm good at in life." Like,
No way, man. Dude, your life is just crazy. I think I love it. I absolutely love it. One thing I think, so this is kind of my follow-up is, I mean, a lot of this stuff ties to dyslexia. Maybe some of it doesn't, right? But it always does because it's you, right? It's like who you are. It's someone awesome. She sat me down once because I was interviewing her like 5 years ago, trying to figure out this whole dyslexia thing, and she works she works out of like American Fork area, and she's been a dyslexic reading remediation person, coach,
yeah,
instructor for a long time. So like, you know, helping kids learn how to read. And she was the type of person that I had that was teaching me when I was 18 to try to
yeah,
get my reading levels back up from a third grade up to where it should have been. I think it kind of worked, maybe, who knows? But it's, I remember she sat me down and she's like, it's not learning disabilities, it's learning differences, right? You
yeah,
never, and so ever since then, I don't say disabilities. It's just a difference. It's a learning difference.
yeah,
And it's just a part of who we are. And one of the things that like all the studies that I've done and research, that I haven't done studies, but like the studying that I've done,
yeah,
is like, I really feel like with dyslexia, it makes us, it can make us with the right mindset freaking resilient, right? Just balls tough and
yeah,
resilient and hardworking people. And obviously, right, like you can be hardworking with ADD, you can be that work might look different, right? It might be sporadic and all over the place, right? But like dyslexia, I mean, at least for me, man, I don't feel like I'm good at a lot of things, but I think that if I have anything over anyone, it's I'll die working hard. I'll die
yeah.
doing what, you know what I mean? And I'm resilient, And so for you, I want to ask, like, do you think that had an influence, a
Absolutely,
positive influence on you through your crazy
absolutely,
childhood?
absolutely, dude. Like, I think my dyslexia really, like, there's some true inherent weaknesses with it, right? Of how my
Hmm.
brain works, of that
Yeah.
listening difference, right?
Yeah.
But there are some true strengths that come with it, right?
Yeah.
Um, I problem solve different. And
Yeah.
in corporate America, that's a damn good thing,
It's
right?
huge. Hmm.
Um, like on a team at work, like being able to think through problems differently is a big advantage. And
Yep.
I've always said, dude, that like resourcefulness and resilience are my superpowers. Um, and
That's
so
awesome.
I like the fact that you feel that way. It's like I know like this dyslexia is part of it, right?
Yeah. 100% it
I
is.
would attribute like whatever small amount of success I've had, like in my career, to my dyslexic brain, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been able to find a career and a path that has allowed me to leverage the strengths of it and
Hmm.
minimize the weaknesses. you know?
I love that.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, it's made a huge difference. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm so grateful that I'm in my kid's life,
Mm-hmm.
because I can sit down with Emma and be like, Emma, you're in the hard part right now
Yep.
of being dyslexic. Like the K through 12 part is brutal, right?
So brutal.
But
Yeah.
when you get to this side and you're less being forced into a box, like this is when you can really leverage your strengths. And here's what they
Yeah.
are. Boom, 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 boom. Like she's
Yep.
a great public speaker. She makes friends so easy. She's
Mm-hmm.
got the golden retriever energy,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and she's just cute as a button, right? Like,
Yeah. That's
anyway,
awesome.
and like, Addie's the same way. Like, they can stand in front of people and deliver a great talk with like almost no prep.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they have the heart of the teacher. They
Mm-hmm.
can present and communicate verbally very, very well. Uh,
Yeah.
and there's space for that in this world.
That's huge. I love that, man. Resilience, resourcefulness. I think, I mean, man, Emma's so blessed. Your kids are so blessed to have a dad and a mom. She sounds like she's a rock star. Your lady, your wife. But
Oh, dude.
on your end, just being able to show, hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, look where you're at right now. It sucks, but it's going to be great. Like, use this and let it grow, let it build character, and I think that's massive. Again, it goes back to these kids, man. Like, they are the future. That's so cliche, but if you can have someone that grows up and they've known since they're a kid that they're a slow reader, but
Mhm.
it's not, they don't have the title of a slow reader. It's
That's
just,
right.
hey man, I read differently, I look differently, but I'll stand up in front of thousands and chat them up and keep them entertained, or I'll figure out problems that other people won't be able to, or I'll be able to see. Like, one thing that I think is really interesting with dyslexia is being able to understand and maybe see kind of a big picture
Yes.
of things to come,
Yes.
trends
Yeah.
that others just don't get,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that's something that, if I have any of those traits, it's I feel like that resonates a lot with me, like in business
Totally.
and
Totally.
in life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
With that side of things, for sure.
Yeah. Macro pattern recognition is huge. Like visual problem solving. One of
Macro
the things
pattern
that
recognition. Jeez, slow down. Let me see. I'm gonna write that down.
I
I
promise you're
love
good
that.
at it, dude.
I love that. It just sounds like a good way to say things.
Yeah. I remember like um my wife and I were at this event and this person had like this verbal math problem that
Yeah.
was like a trick question, right?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I kicked out the answer really quick and my wife's like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "Well, you just take the blocks and you move the blocks around." She's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, in your mind, you take the 7 block and the 3 block and you move them together and then you have the 10 block, right?" And like
Yeah.
she's like, "You're joking." I was like, "No, that's like how I do math in my head. Is like
Yeah.
I visualize the blocks and I move the blocks around and then."
Yeah.
I was like, "You
That
gotta do
is so
that?" She was
awesome.
like, "Nobody does that."
Yeah. Dude, it, it's crazy hearing these stories, man. Like I don't know if you know, like Scott and Natalie Paul. They're big personalities here in Utah. A lot of like venture capitalism and that type of angel investing. Scott's
Yeah.
big into it. Natalie is too. But I was chatting with Natalie and she told me that it was I was blown away by it. I thought it was so cool. But numbers, she says that in her head, numbers all the way up to like 50 have a personality and have like unique characteristics. And
Mhm.
so in her brain, she looks at numbers as like people basically.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
have their different personalities. And then she uses that with math stuff. Like, it ties in. I'm like, dude, that is wild. And I love it. Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely love
Yeah.
it. Right. Yeah. That's hilarious. The block, the block scenario. But that's the cool thing, right? Like, if we can help, with these children and these kids and adults, dude, I was on a call yesterday with a really good buddy of mine. And we were chatting, and he's shown some interest in what I'm doing with Spendlove Co. That's the name of the company. Just haven't figured out a name for the podcast.
Right.
But he's been like, man, tell me more about dyslexia. Tell me more about this and that. Dude, yesterday I was like, how is it like for you when you read? He's like, oh, I was in a slow readers class growing up. And this guy, I look at him as just a genius. Like, he's a prodigy. He's a young kid. He's like 28, 29, and he is so smart. He's so good at what he does. And again, for people that are so naive to dyslexia, they think that, hey, you're dyslexic, you're kind of stupid, man, right? Like you don't understand. But I'm almost nine, and I mean, I'm not the type, I can't, diagnose people, obviously, but I'm like 99.9% positive this dude is dyslexic. He's talking about how, he will be reading a sentence, and then like words from sentences like 2 or 3 rows below will kind of creep up into that sentence, and he's reading the wrong things. And I'm like, dude, that's like, that's what I do. Like, that's a big thing. And we just talked a lot more about it. And then this Kate Griggs, actually, on her website, she's got you can take a quiz, and it's pretty, it takes 10 minutes, but I think it's pretty good for a quiz on a website. And it was like, you're probably dyslexic. And he's like, no way. But it was crazy, Mitch. Cause he's like, well, am I stupid? And I'm like, no, like, no, dude, you're looking at it all wrong, man. Like, this is awesome. Like, such a cool thing. And again, like, I would recommend to go to, reading remediation, and people that are like, that's their gig and that's their job. And they go through, for me, I had to go through a massive test, weird undertaking thing, and like all this stuff and she was like, yeah, you're super dyslexic. But it was, if that awareness is so important, right? And to have a dad like you for Emma, and to have your wife for Emma, and people like that, and the more teachers in schools and elementary schools understand dyslexia and can spot it and be like, hey, you're not stupid, like, it's all good, like, I'll help you out, right? Man, like, because I think one thing it does for people, I mean, for me and you at least, man, I feel like we both similar experiences in certain ways, right? When it comes to like I love your example with you want to put GED for that big old capital, the board meeting, the investor meeting. And for me, it was like just that one post, and well, first of all, it was telling my boss years ago that I was dyslexic, and I was like pumped about it, and I was learning about it, but I kind of went back and did the recluse thing because of how how he treated me. And then, but then it's like, I just, man, I think you just got to be real in life. Right. And there's a lot of people that are in the business world that just, they put on a facade. They might not be dyslexic. They might not, whatever. They might just be absolutely normal. Yeah. And, but they're not being genuine or unique with it. Right. And accepting. So that's important.
Yeah, dude. I think you hit the nail on the head, man. Like, I sent this quote to my team yesterday, and it's from Carl Jung. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Carl's Jung.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
That's awesome. I'm going to have you send that to me.
Yeah, it resonates with me that with what you said, man, because it's like, clearly with like my childhood, I've been spending a fair amount of time in therapy.
Yeah.
So, I've spent a fair amount of time and money with mental health professionals to like unpack growing up.
Yeah.
But man, like, dude, if there's a hack to peace and happiness, it's learning to accept yourself and your imperfections exactly how you are. Man,
I love that, man.
If there's one thing you can communicate to this rising generation of dyslexic kids, it's like, just love and accept your dyslexia. because it's
Yeah.
not a disability. It's
Yeah.
a learning difference, and your brain works differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're
Yeah.
perfect. You are the exact way you're supposed to be. You just
Mhm.
need to learn, like all of us, how to leverage your strengths and minimize your weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you look at some of the
Man.
players in NBA, and like, dude, they would not be models. Like they're ugly dudes, but they're
Yeah.
damn good athletes, right? Like
Yeah.
it's no different than that. It's like you just got to
Yeah.
find like find your strengths and lean in, right? Like
For sure. For
anyway,
sure.
that was a weird
That's so
example,
true,
but
man. No, it makes sense though. I guess, hey, that camera, got to be shy a little bit, but you can ball, then it's all right.
that's right.
Just run with it.
Yeah.
Oh, Mitch, I love it, man. I love it. Do you, I mean, I feel like you and I could chat for hours and hours. Any last kind of thoughts or comments before we wrap this up? This has been, for me, super impactful. I love doing this, man, because I get to learn from super successful, awesome people that are going through it. But any last thoughts?
Oh, man, I mean, only words of encouragement.
Yeah.
Like for you taking this plunge, and like I really just feel strongly that you're doing something that the world needs. And if like you and I knew what we knew now growing up, like how much further ahead would we be in life?
Oh
How
man.
many less
Yeah.
like holes in the drywall would there be in your room?
For sure. For real. For real.
How
Man.
many less kids will end up in prison
Yeah.
because they know that there's nothing wrong with them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I would just say keep it up. And to anybody that's listening, it's like, dude, you are exactly the way you're supposed to be.
Mm,
So
love that,
anything I can do
man.
to help, man, let me know.
I appreciate it, Mitch. Yeah, we're definitely going to be really good friends, and I'm going to connect my wife with your wife about the homeschooling thing, and maybe we could
Do it.
hang out and stuff and become best friends.
Yeah,
But
let's go grab dinner together sometime and we'll chat.
let's do it, man.
We'll
Let's
chat
do it.
dyslexia and homeschool.
Okay, absolutely, man. Money. Well, hey, thank you for joining. I've learned a ton. I think this is awesome. Mitch, you're the man. You're killing it. Keep doing what you're doing, and you are appreciated.
Hey, dude, I'm really humbled that you reached out and invited me to be on your show. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Money. I'll just turn this bad boy off here in a second. But dude, that's all, because you can edit it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's editing software that I'm learning.
yeah,
But
yeah.
dude, you're a I don't even know what to call you, man. You're just a freaking ball of crazy energy and packed with just that resilience, man. I think that was awesome, dude. I mean, I loved it. So I appreciate you, man. You've been through it and you're killing it. You're exactly what I want to be when I grow up. So
Dude, anytime, anything I can do to help your show and what you're trying to
thank
do,
you.
let me know. Dude,
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I'll throw out a couple ideas for names though.
Yeah, please do, dude. My wife, dude, like if I go to a restaurant, it's like, well, and she's like, like, you know what you're going to, you already know what you're going to buy. Like, stop, like with certain things like this. And I'm not kidding. It's been months. I'm like, well, I've got a Google Doc of a million. So giving you an idea. So my logo is do you know what a Joshua tree is?
Yeah.
Like down. So It's a Joshua tree.
Cool.
Founded by belief, rooted in love. I think it's a really cool symbolic, example of it's gone through the ringer, the winds in that kind of climate. It's just crazy. And so all the trees look different. They're sideways or whatever, but they're beautiful the way they are, but their foundation's incredibly strong, right? That's why they don't blow over.
Yeah.
That's kind of, but I'm like, maybe it's just Spendlove Co. for the podcast, but I dude, give it to me, Mitch. Come on, man.
Yeah. So the thought that kept popping into my head was growing up dyslexic.
Growing up dyslexic.
Yeah.
I love that, dude.
Dude, misspell it on purpose.
That's true.
So
I love it.
Growing up dyslexic was the thought that kept coming to my mind, right? Because it's like, that, that's what framed us. That's like
Yeah.
created who we are,
Yeah.
and like that's created, growing up dyslexic created the root system that's resilient.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that was the thought I had.
Dude, I love that.
Not the most creative by any means, but like that thought just kept popping into my head. So I was like, well, I'll share it with them. And,
for real,
This has been Storybilt with guest Mitch Watkins, hosted and produced by Tyler Spendlove, and edited by Aiden Bourgeois. Thank you for listening.